Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a shocker for you today, as if you anything to shock people about what goes on in Washington. But it's really nauseating because it imperils our nation. Now, here's the story. The New York Times has a magazine, and it's published with interviews with various people. So they chose a presidential advisor who's a young man. He's about 37 years old. And he is the principal foreign policy advisor to President Obama, all right? Now, his name is Ben Rhodes. And you say, all right, he's a foreign policy advisor. What's his experience? Has he ever been in the armed forces? No. Has he ever been in the Foreign Service of the United States? No. Does he have any overseas experience other than that? No. Did he get any training in college about government? No. What is his background? He is a fiction writer, okay? But he's the principal foreign policy advisor. So he tells the New York Times, this is all public, tells the New York Times that they were deliberately deceiving the American people about Iran. They said, we've got to work on this deal because there's an election coming up, and the Iranians are going to put in a new government of moderates, and we have to be ready for it. Turns out that they already had the policy in place. The deal was already done before any election came about. That was line number one. Line number two, or at least statement number two, is we're going to make Iran. Now get this. This is what this man said. He's the principal foreign policy advisor to the President of the United States. Has no experience at all, but he's in there. All right, he says, we are going to replace the cumbersome entanglements with Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and Turkey with Iran. Iran is going to be our new partner. Now, a 10-year-old grammar school student would have had better sense than to think the leading sponsor of terrorism in the world was going to be our partner. But that's what was done. Now, this man went on to say, but the media was so gullible. They're only 27-year-olds. They have no knowledge whatsoever of the world, and we can put anything over on them because they're just a bunch of gullible nincompoops. Now, this is the highest level of our country, and these are the people making the decisions. And our allies, Saudis, they're aghast. The Israelis are aghast. The Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Turks, they're aghast. Like, what are you doing? You're favoring this bunch of terrorists. Now, that was in the New York Times magazine. Ben Rhodes, 37-year-old, non-experienced, and he says he's got a, quote, mind meld. That's a Klingon term, I think, from Star Trek, a mind meld with Obama.
But isn't some of the responsibility on the press to know the backgrounds of these people, to understand what's going on?
He says they don't have any background to judge against. They're illiterate. He says they're a bunch of sheep, and we can take advantage of them because the people covering the White House don't have any real-world experience. That's according to the man who's the spin master for the president. But, Terry, the fact that they are deliberately lying and then they're telling the New York Times about it, kind of like laughing, like, look what we did. We pulled this one over on the American people.
Well, I bet he's not laughing today.
Well, I mean, he ought to be.
It's everywhere.
Well, he ought to be fired. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's all over everywhere. But I don't know if anybody's noting it. But the media must have been terribly upset that this guy is laughing at them, that look what I did to you. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is the kind of government we've got. And you know, no wonder people want Donald Trump. They are so sick of somebody who would stick it in the eyes of the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Turks, and our dear friends, the Israelis.
How about and the media and the American public?
That's all that at one time, and laughing about it. Of course they want somebody else who's tough and strong and, you know, warts and all. I mean, that's what we're getting. But we will have a President Trump because of the Ben Rhodes of this world.
Wow.
Whew. Okay, I've ranted here. But isn't that shocking?
It is shocking. It's very shocking. Not surprising in some ways, but very shocking.
This administration is a tissue of lies. If you like your health insurance, you can keep it, lie. If you like your doctor, you can keep it, lie. The Affordable Care Act is going to lower your premiums, another lie. I mean, it just goes on and on and on of deception and lies. How soon will the American people wake up and say, we've had enough? Yeah. Enough.
And the media.
And the media. All right.
Well, from foreign policy to what's going on at home, North Carolina and the federal government are suing each other over the state's transgender bathroom bill. That case could affect bathrooms and locker rooms across the country because it could go to the Supreme Court. Dale Hurd has that story.
A potentially epic clash over transgender rights took shape Monday after the U.S. Justice Department and North Carolina filed dueling lawsuits over the state's bathroom law.
How to balance the expectations of privacy and equality in one of the most private areas of our lives.
HB 2, North Carolina's so-called bathroom law, requires transgender people to use the public restroom that matches the gender on their birth certificate. The Department of Justice said the law violates the federal civil rights of transgender people.
We are seeking a court order declaring HB 2's restroom restriction impermissibly discriminatory.
Defenders of the law have argued it's needed to protect people, including children, from potentially being molested in bathrooms by, for instance, men who could simply say they're women to get into women's restrooms. North Carolina's governor is asking for legal and legislative clarity.
We believe a court, rather than a federal agency, should tell our state, our nation, and employers across the country what the law requires.
There's a massive amount of money at stake. One study found that North Carolina could lose up to $4.7 billion annually in federal education funding.
This is not going to slow down. This is not going to go away.
Businesses and entertainers such as Bruce Springsteen have boycotted North Carolina in protest of the law.
Bruce Springsteen can write a song about being born in the USA, but we're here to tell you the USA is watching North Carolina, and we don't need Bruce Springsteen to come here and tell us how to operate our country.
The bill is simply about protecting the safety, the privacy, and the welfare of women, children, and citizens in North Carolina.
Several other states in recent months have proposed similar laws limiting protections for gay, bisexual, and transgender people. And the legal battle could culminate in a landmark Supreme Court decision. North Carolina's governor accused the Obama administration of rewriting federal civil rights laws to protect transgender people's access to bathrooms, locker rooms, and showers across the country. And he said because of that, this fight is now a national issue. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
You know, if you're like me, I'm appalled. I'm simply appalled that the United States government, with all of its power and all of its money, is going to spend all this time and effort making sure that the fraction of 1% of people who are so-called transgenders can go into the women's or the men's bathrooms. I mean, how absurd can you get? How does this become a great civil rights issue? You know, this is absurd. And if there is a shift in administration, and I think there's going to be from what the polls begin to show us, if there is a shift in administration, Loretta Lynch will be out on her ear. She will no longer be the Attorney General of the United States. And of course, that means that this particular suit by the federal government will be dismissed by the federal government. But to penalize the state billions of dollars, take away school funding because they don't want men going into women's bathrooms? I mean, isn't this awful? You just wonder, and they make a big civil rights thing about it. It's got nothing to do with civil rights. It's just absurd. It's merely part of the socialist, humanist agenda to destroy the Judeo-Christian fabric of this nation. That's what it's all about. We want to take away everything that you considered morality and everything you considered decency, and we're going to run roughshod over you, and if you don't like it, that's tough. we're going to penalize you as hard as we can. Don't think they're just being benign. This isn't defending people. No way under heaven. But folks, this is America, and this is who you put in office. You elected him. I didn't elect him. You did. The American people. They put him in a couple terms. Well, in other news, voters are going to the polls in primaries today, and now a new survey shows, interestingly, that in key states, the must-win states, the race between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton looks very close. John Jessup has that story.
That's right, Pat. The election is still 6 months away, but already analysts are looking ahead to how Trump and Clinton will square off in key states. And a new Quinnipiac University poll shows tight races in 3 of the most pivotal swing states. Clinton leads Trump by just 1 point, 43% to 42% in both Florida and Pennsylvania, while Trump leads Clinton 43% to 39% in Ohio. That amounts to a dead heat in all 3 states. Quinnipiac focuses on those because not since 1960 has a candidate gone on to the White House without winning at least 2 of those 3 states. Well, Israel is probably best known for its biblical history, a strong military, and cutting-edge technology. Now it's becoming known for something else, a world leader in diamonds. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Jerusalem.
The Israel Diamond Exchange has the largest trading floor in the world. Some say it's like shopping in a diamond supermarket. While you may have heard that diamonds are a girl's best friend, what you might not know is many of those diamonds come from Israel.
Israelis have a very special knack in being able to run around the world and are very, in the most positive way possible, aggressively pursue business. And you see Israelis in New York all the time. You see Israelis in the Far East. And it's become a very important hub for global distribution of diamonds.
David Lasher is managing director of New York's Diamond Dealers Club.
New York is the bedrock of the world diamond industry. Over 40% of the world's diamonds are consumed by the U.S. Israel is a very important partner in moving the goods through the world and to the U.S.
The Israel Diamond Exchange boasts some 3,500 members. Shmuel Schnitzer is the lifelong honorary president of the Israel Diamond Exchange.
It's not easy to become a member here. You have to show your credibility in all aspects.
Oddly enough, this diamond connection began in Europe because it was one of the few trades allowed to Jews. As Jews returned to the Holy Land, they brought their knowledge with them.
It started in the 40s when Jews that ran away from Europe came to Israel, and they built the industry here. Since then, thanks God, we are growing and growing. In 1940, we had 70,000 US dollars exports. Today, we have about $7 billion only for polished diamond export.
There are no diamond mines in Israel. All of its gems are imported to be traded, cut, and polished. Israel does not deal in conflict diamonds, stones that are sold to finance civil wars and bloodshed in Africa. Even today, the industry is very family-oriented, passing the business from generation to generation.
We are a family. My father is a diamond manufacturer for 50 years. Yeah, and for 50 years we manufacture diamonds. Myself inside the business, I'm making diamond jewelry.
And it's possible to spend a lot.
This product, it's around $200,000. I have $150,000 to $200,000. The people that can buy this is or wholesaler or a jewelry factory.
But why are diamonds so enduring? Schnitzer says it's a combination of women's love for diamonds and their lasting value. That could be why diamonds are forever. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. And Pat, side note, next year the Diamond Exchange celebrates its 80th anniversary.
It's amazing. You know, I personally watched a Jewish diamond merchant in Antwerp. I looked, and there was a group of rough diamonds in front of him, and he went $7,000.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it. The man was an expert, and somebody else would do the same thing. They'd come up with the same number. I mean, it was the incredible wisdom of these people is just absolutely extraordinary. Of course, the main diamond industry is controlled by De Beers out of South Africa. And Oppenheimer was Jewish, I guess, who was the head man of the De Beers. But nevertheless, they do the cutting and the polishing of diamonds. But in Antwerp, it's a Jewish enterprise. They control the market, and they are brilliant at it, absolutely brilliant. You know, you look at those things, and you say, well, it's a little hunk of rock with some sparkles. But they know exactly how many carats. I mean, you know,
That's
all
exactly
the
right, whether it's flawed or not.
Oh, baby. Well, I mean, it's something. But they can classify a group of rough, and the rough is hard to decide. Once they're polished, it's different. But once they get those rough diamonds, then they've got to polish them and cut them, and many times there are flaws inside the rough they have to cut out, and then but these guys are brilliant. But it's all done it's in their mind. It's not some chart they have that they follow some rules. They just know how to do it. They're brilliant at it. Yeah. So thank you, Chris. I think you knew that the Jewish people can.
Well, I did. I've actually, on trips to Israel, we've actually gone into diamond factories and seen what they do there. It's pretty impressive.
I got my wife a little brooch in Haifa some years ago, and it was so beautiful and so cheap. I mean, I just couldn't believe how cheap it was. Just
I don't think it would be anymore.
Well,
you got a deal there.
And we were right at the factory where they cut the things, and it was just gorgeous. So I mean, God bless them. $7 billion. If that helps Israel, I'm all for it.